Hello.
In the dark of the night, whispers of deceit,
Shadows dance on the walls,
secrets they repeat, a shadowed figure
with eyes full of lies.
hiding truths in the shadows where no one dares to pry. Uncover the truth, let the lies come undone. Peel back the layers until the light is shown. Uncover the truth, let the shadows run. Break free from the chains and find the sun. Uncover the truth in the dead of the night, where secrets lie hidden like a whispered bite. Uncover the truth in the dim of the light, where betrayals take root in the heart of the fight. In the rain-soaked streets, under the moon's pale light.
Why did you do that to me?
I've been asked from genius.
We're gonna uncover the truth
We're gonna uncover the truth, baby. Bring it to
under
light.
the light. Did you write those? Like, you're becoming a music producer now.
I'm a music producer with AI.
Oh my God, that was amazing. That was amazing. Well,
I got more elevator music for people for days.
well,
Let me turn this song off. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
this is Bloodlines and Betrayals. I am Lieutenant Cully with Detective Schuman, my subordinate, and we are going to talk arguably about the most popular trial of our time, the trial of the proverbial century.
Last century, actually.
Well, yeah, O.J. Simpson,
Yes.
who passed last year, and we don't know the truth. But
I think we do know the truth.
no, we don't. We're gonna get to the bottom. If we knew the truth, then we wouldn't be going over the story.
Oh.
So we know the truth. We're gonna go over the case, the evidence, and we'll come to a conclusion at the end of it. But it was one of the first publicized trials to be on television. Other than, I think, the Menendez trial was on TV, the first one, but that was controversial at the time. This became daytime TV entertainment for most
This
people.
is when, remember Court TV?
That's when it first started. Yeah,
Is there still Court TV?
yeah. That's why I told you I watched the Karen Reed case.
Oh, there is, but it's just nowhere near. Literally.
Yes, it's better. Yeah, no, it is. They do. You can pick what trials you want to watch.
Oh wow. Oh wow. So is it a subscription service?
No, they're all over the country. Like, if you go on YouTube right now to Court TV, you
Right.
can watch the Karen Reed trial, the Lori Daybell trial that's going on,
Okay.
and there's like two other ones, and they cover it. They have coverage of multiple trials, and then during any breaks, lunch breaks or whatever, they analyze it with their people.
Did not
So
know
they
that.
do. They do a great job. Because I like watching certain trials. But I've been watching the Karen Reed trial because that's my case, and Turtle Boy is my hero. So, but this was controversial at the time. Judge Ito let cameras in the courtroom, and people largely think that that's a huge reason the jury may have found him not guilty. Other reasons were it was payback for the Rodney King verdict. But
Right.
the
Because that was in the same. Right. Only a few years after it. Right.
yeah, yes. But the television cameras were controversial at the time.
Right.
Judge Ito made the call to do it, and everyone became a star because of it. So like people didn't understand like this is real. This is not fiction. And I think that played a big part in it, because you have to understand this was a year plus in the making. So we'll go over that. But
Can
OJ,
I read off when we get ready? Can I read off the chat GPT both sides arguments? It's very succinct.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say that
he does a nice job of
summarizing it.
Summarizing it. Yeah.
I just wanted to say that he was a football player for the Bills. He still holds several records.
Hall of Famer.
He's a Hall of Famer. They're not kicking him out. He was the fastest person to ever rush for 1,000 yards in a season. That still stands to this day, which is 7 games. He married Nicole Brown really after his career. It was like right at, I think, the last season is when he met and married Nicole Brown.
Yep.
So that's when it all started. And you can start with Chad if you want.
Oh, okay. So here were the two sides. The core argument, and O.J. Simpson had the dream team on his side. If you remember, was we talked about it once.
It was Robert Shapiro. It was Kardashian. It was Effley Bailey.
Kardashian was his personal lawyer.
Barry Scheck, and Johnny Cochran were the dream team.
Right. Who was the guy who the one-armed man again?
The DNA guy?
No, the guy who was Effley Bailey.
Effley Bailey was. It was Effley Bailey who represented.
I mean,
The Fugitive.
For people who don't know, like if you've seen the movie The Fugitive, where that's actually taken from a TV series that was based off of the Effley Bailey case when he was a young guy. He was a lawyer, young guy, and he defended the one-armed man, the doctor who had a kid committed murder, and he got him off. I'm pretty sure
he did. Yes. Carl Douglas was also on the trial. He spoke mainly on the Netflix documentary because Douglas was working for Johnny at the time. So he speaks a lot on the documentaries because Cochran is no longer with us, of what Johnny's thoughts were. But the interesting part was how it started. When he initially was arrested, Kardashian was his attorney. Kardashian had 0 criminal experience. So he needed help. So he brings on Shapiro. OJ had wanted Cochran when this happened. So he told Shapiro, I want Johnny. So they brought Cochran on. Then they ended up with Effley Bailey, and Barry Scheck was brought on basically as the DNA expert. So that was considered the dream team. The prosecution was Marcia Clark. It was initially somebody else who actually had a episode in court.
Really? Was it Darden? I thought it was Darden.
Well, Darden came on after, but it was initially someone who he had a heart attack during the preliminary hearings.
I didn't know that.
Darden was added, but there was controversy behind it because people think they added him as the token black guy because they wanted to show that they weren't racist. So they brought on Cochran, or they brought on Darden.
Got it.
And Darden has spoke about that too.
Did he feel that, or
yes, he 100% felt that.
Oh, he felt he was brought up. Really?
Yes, because he felt that he was an excellent prosecutor.
Okay.
And that he was brought on essentially because he was black. And he said that. And it was just.
So was he DEI before there was DEI?
He kind of felt that way. He was DEI,
basically a DEI hire.
Okay, so this,
I'm just curious because I didn't know. I hadn't seen it.
So the guy
was he bothered? Was he uh
he was bothered. Yes.
Yeah.
The guy that was initially assigned, it was Marsha Clark and William.
Guys now aren't even bothered by that.
William Hodgman was the guy. He was replaced. He had like an episode in court.
Okay.
It was a health episode. I thought it was a heart attack or something.
Interesting.
So he was replaced by Darden. And Darden had prosecuted many cases in the past successfully, but he was
celebrity cases though, right?
No, but as the trial went on, he became increasingly frustrated because he felt that he was brought on by the DA's office simply because he was black, and they wanted to have a black attorney there. Because once the Simpson,
is that why he made? Is that so? Wait, did he have him put the glove on to get OJ off?
No. We'll get to that part. We'll talk about the guy. But they also had Alan Dershowitz was on the team.
Oh yeah, Alan Dershowitz, phenomenal lawyer.
Yeah, Alan Dershowitz, Harvard legend. Sean Holley was on the team, and then you had Gerald Ullman on the team, and Carl Douglas was on the team as well. But he was part of Cochran's firm.
He was like his right-hand guy, I think.
If you watch any of the trial back and you see the lawyers that are packed in, OJ's team has like two rows of lawyers. So that's a team. But you can go and talk if you want about the background.
All right, so we'll read.
You got to go over the murder though first.
But before I get to that, the thing that made it so iconic was when Al Cowlings proceeded down California State Highway with O.J. Simpson in tow, with the police following them for a couple hours.
To this day, that was like one of the highest rated things. Every major network cut in to that chase, including during the NBA Finals. It was the Knicks and the Rockets. I remember I was watching it.
Where were you when you were watching it?
I was watching the game with my friend at my house, and they cut in to the OJ Bronco chase. And first it was just kind of like up in the corner.
Right.
Then they cut away from it completely and went to it. And
were you when you first saw it happening, like what was your thoughts?
I was 14. I didn't really understand it. I didn't think that he was guilty. I didn't know the circumstances. Al Cowlings was talking to the lead detective on the phone, basically saying OJ has a gun to his head.
Right.
And Cowlings was driving.
Right.
OJ was in the back, and then OJ was on the phone with the lead detective. And the lead detective was just talking. If you listen to the call, they play it on the Netflix documentary. He's talking to him and just trying to get him to surrender. And OJ pleaded, like, I want to go be with Nicole. I want to be with Nicole. And the detective was brilliant. He's like, OJ, think of your kids. You can't leave your kids. Your kids will have no one. So this went on for, like you said,
and he had young kids at the time.
Very young. He had young and old kids because he had
kids. He had older kids from his
first wife, yes, and he had kids with Nicole. So they negotiated an agreement where Simpson could go to his house. So after, I think, 2 hours, he went to his house. And then the strangest part was OJ's son came out, the oldest one, to the car, and the police almost shot him. and started screaming and yelling at him. And he had to be pulled away by police. OJ sat in the car for another 45 minutes.
What was he screaming and yelling at him?
We don't know. We don't know exactly what was said. You could just see it on film. We could not get the audio. We couldn't read lips or anything because they had a helicopter following it.
I remember where I was. I was in the gym actually, and when he came
Really,
on,
that late at night?
yeah, I used to lift at night, and I think it was summer, right? It was the summer, and I think I probably was still.
June.
What year was it again? 90.
It was June of '94.
Okay. Yep. So,
oh yeah, you were in college, right?
yes, that I was. I was probably working at the gym, and so that was the year I had to sit out with an injury. I ended up hurting myself in believe it or
Spring
not.
ball.
Well, no, unrelated. I hurt myself. I was lifting heavy. This was like in July or maybe early August, and the next day I was at work and like somebody I worked at a day camp. Somebody was just kind of messing around with me, and I just kind of like chucked them in the pool. Like, it would be nothing that would ever you would think, that would bother you, right?
Yeah.
My back just popped, and I went to the ground like it was someone shot me in my back. And then there was like, that's when they discovered there was like herniated discs, and then
holy crap,
they didn't know it, because I was lifting heavy, and it was just kind of like.
They weren't bulging. They were herniated.
Probably were bulging at the time, and then.
Oh, okay, I got you. Then you herniated them, basically.
Yeah, basically the combination of probably like I remember we used to deadlift and the insane weight and all that stuff. So I was always trying. I'm sure you did too. I would be lifting as much as I could, and then probably combined with someone fooling around with me the next. I didn't even think about it when it happened. Like I was sore. But it wasn't like, it wasn't the first time I was sore, you know what I mean?
No.
So, and then, I went to the ground, and then my back was I ended up having they said I was never going to be able to play again. And then.
Yeah, with herniated discs at that time, it was very difficult to treat.
But I came back. Greg Hudson would tell you he used to call me the miracle guy.
Did you have surgery or no? You just rehabbed it. Wow.
Rehab. That was really the first time, probably other people were doing it that were pros at the time, but like anyone below like a pro level was trying to like come back from something that they said you couldn't come back from. I came back. It took me about 6 months, and by the time winter workouts came around, I had doctors that approved me. I'm giving you a long-winded short story because at first they didn't want me to come back, but
no, because back then, if you had herniated discs, it was very difficult. You could do damage and paralyze yourself.
That's what they were worried about. So, but then I had the number one surgeon in the world say that I'm okay. When I saw him, and he says he's fine. He just needs to keep doing his exercises and stuff like that, and take care of himself. He can't squat no more. Like there's no squatting for him.
Right.
Like, maybe in 5 years he could squat, but right now there's no squatting for him. You got to figure out things other stuff to get what you need to get done. And UConn was good about that. And then I came back. I played I played the next two. That's when they moved me to linebacker after that. Actually,
95, 96, right?
I started. So at first I came back and I was all right, and then I got better and better and better, and as you get better, you feel more confident. But anyway, going back to, so I was at the gym, and, the gym back then, in the 90s, like I went to like a Gold Gym in the summer, you know what I mean? Like it was Meathead Central. And it was shocking because all the guys were at the gym.
Everyone stopped.
And like, as the word got out throughout the gym, and you just saw, like, there wasn't that many people late at night, but like you saw like the 25 people or so all watching TVs. And It
Well,
was.
it was the slowest car chase in the universe.
It was. I feel like I went home because it was so slow.
He was
like, "Well, I'm
driving
gonna go
30
home."
miles an hour. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll go home and watch the rest of this. I think I did, but at the time when it first was happening, everyone was like, "Is that O.J. Simpson?" Like,
Well, he was supposed to surrender himself at
for people
11
who don't
a.m. that
know,
day.
like who aren't our age, because a lot of our audience, especially with the sports stuff, is probably like your age or below, and probably younger than probably 30.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So for those people who don't know, like you look at OJ, now you think of him as a criminal and all that kind of stuff. OJ was a movie star at the time. He was in The Naked Gun, 900 billion. He was
Yeah.
funny. He was funny. Now I didn't know, I don't know anything about him personally until this, other than he was a celebrity.
He was the first black player to kind of transcend from being a superstar athlete into pop culture with endorsements, commercials, and movies.
Right. Michael Jordan was the next level, but he was really already at the next level. But he was like, yes, in the 80s. He used to do the Hertz commercials. Remember, he used to, I don't know if you remember, he used to hurdle.
Yeah.
Yes.
He'd hurdle. Yeah.
Even Arnold Palmer.
Yeah.
We're in the hurt. No, was it Arnold Palmer? Yeah, it was Arnold Palmer. And it would be OJ hurdling through the airport. You know what I mean? It was
and he also did isotoner gloves.
That's right, and so did Dan Marino, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was the he was like kind of an iconic figure,
which is why this got so much attention.
Which is why it's got so much attention. If you're a kid who looks back at this and you say, "Oh, it's just a football player," like what's the big deal, type of thing. Like,
he was not that. He was a broadcaster too.
He was a broadcaster. He was really in the media. Now every player's in the media. You know what I mean? Like that's part of their thing.
Or they have a podcast.
It wasn't a thing back then, and that he was. So he was really big. So let's read the case. Core argument: OJ murdered Nicole.
Well, you got to go over the murder.
Right. So the prosecution side, okay, state of California. Core argument was OJ murdered Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman in a fit of jealousy and rage, which is what most people who believe that he was guilty believe that that's the exact.
But you have to remember that night he went to watch his kids at a ballerina performance with Nicole, and then Nicole went out after. OJ was kind of upset that he wasn't invited to the dinner after. So he leaves. Nicole goes. She forgets her glasses at dinner. Ron Goldman was just a waiter at the restaurant. And he was doing the nice thing by returning her glasses. I guess, he called or found out who they belonged to, where they lived, and he was going to return the glasses. And as he was returning, Nicole came out to meet him. And then they were.
So they had no relationship at all?
No. Didn't know each other. Nope. Not at all. That's what most people don't.
I did not know that either. Okay.
That's what I wanted to tell you. Yes.
I did not know that.
He was just the wrong place at the wrong time.
Wrong place at the wrong time.
He was not targeted.
Wouldn't OJ, before I read this case, why would OJ jump to conclusions like that if he never seen the guy before?
Because he was a witness. I mean, he
proceeded to kill her and then he was there.
Yeah, well, if indeed it was OJ.
Right.
He had come for whoever was there came for Nicole. Nicole was being attacked. Goldman tried to stop it, intervene, and then he was stabbed to death. Nicole had brought out her dog. She was coming out to walk the dog. So the way it was kind of found was one of the neighbors found her a keyed dog walking
with blood.
Alone with blood on him. and then reported it to the police, and they found the bodies.
Okay.
But the
All right, so
crime scene was a mess. It wasn't secured, and that's what the big
part of the
issue was. Yeah.
All right, blood evidence. Simpson's blood was found in the crime scene. Blood from both victims was found in Simpson's white Bronco,
Correct.
which is weird, obviously. A trail of blood led to the crime scene to Simpson's home. Gloves. A bloody glove was found at the crime scene.
Yep.
Which is a dumb mistake or a purposeful mistake.
And Cato Kalin was there. He was a big part of it too, because he was the only one that they interviewed, and then they interviewed the neighbors. But Cato Kalin initially heard 3 thumps. He told police, and OJ said it was him hitting golf balls. But I think Cato also came out and saw what happened as well. But OJ.
So what happened? No, because didn't Cato live on OJ's property?
Yeah, he lived in the guest house, but he came out and saw the bodies. But what happened was immediately after OJ, he was already gone. He went in, changed, got in the limo, boarded a flight to Chicago. So that was, he was trying to, the timeline, he was trying to set up his alibi that, I'm in the air, I'm in Chicago. It couldn't have been me. He didn't find out until the next day, allegedly. They called his hotel, and then he flew back home.
A bloody glove was found at the crime scene. A matching glove was found behind Simpson's guest house.
Correct.
Obviously him. A shoe print, a rare size 12.
Bruno Maglia shoe, yes.
Matching Simpson's size was found at the scene. DNA evidence obviously matched Simpson's blood to the samples at the scene.
But there was, I believe, an unidentified male.
There was, yes.
Evidence that was never found.
Well, I'm going to read you the counter case of it. Prosecutors highlighted Simpson's history of abuse towards Nicole, including 911 calls, previous incidents, flight behavior, Simpson's infamous low-speed chase in a white Bronco with Alcons was interpreted as a sign of guilt. Inside the car were cash, a passport, and a disguise.
Yes, he had a disguise.
This seems like a slam dunk that the prosecution fucked up.
Well,
you mishandled evidence. Prosecution. This is what the challenges were for the prosecution. Improperly stored samples. Lead detective Mark Furman accused of planting evidence and exposed as a racist. Recorded using racial slurs, probably like half the cops back then. So I don't know. Even if he was a racist, like
his credibility was shattered after that.
It shot his credibility 100%.
But you have to understand also there were 3 witnesses that were not able. Well, Marsha Clark did not call them to testify because they sold their stories to like hard copy or the National Enquirer.
That was a big thing back then too, selling your story.
Yes. One of the neighbors, Jill Shively, testified to the grand jury that she saw the Ford Bronco speeding away from the address in such a hurry it almost collided with her head on. She sold her story for $5,000. Jose Camacho provided receipts that showed Simpson purchased the 12-inch stiletto knife 6 weeks before the murders. The knife was recovered and determined to be similar, but he sold his story to the National Enquirer for $12,000. So they didn't call him to testify. Former NFL player Rosie Greer visited Simpson in jail, and he was trying to get Tim Simpson to confess and turn himself in. One of the jailhouse guards heard Simpson yell to Greer that he didn't mean to do it. And the evidence was ruled inadmissible because Greer was clergy at the time. So not being able to use those witnesses, I think, also made a difference. You can go on. I just wanted to point that out.
Good point. The glove appeared to not fit Simpson. Tried it on in court, leading to defense iconic line. If you fit it, must acquit. Okay, defense side. O.J. Simpson and the Dream Team. O.J. was framed by a corrupt and racist LAPD. That is such a stretch. Okay, lead detective Mark Furman was portrayed as a racist and had motive to an opportunity to plant evidence.
Yes.
Furman's tapes use racial slurs, undermine credibility, and fuel claims of police bias.
Well,
that was brilliant moves by
it was Cochran's plan, but
brilliant moves.
Furman was the one who found the bloody glove,
right?
And Furman was the one, I believe, who logged most of the DNA evidence. So there was the argument of transference, and the argument that he planted it.
And L.A., Los Angeles police have a bad history at that time.
Yes, they did.
Rodney King. You go back to the 50s movies like L.A. Cop. You know, the great movies, by the way. Black Dahlia, isn't that Los Angeles?
Yeah, that was Hollywood.
Yep, that's
Absolutely.
Hollywood.
But you have to remember
L.A. Confidential, the movie. Remember that movie?
Absolutely. But
the corruption and the intertwining of Hollywood with the police. And
absolutely. But you have to understand the biggest part of this.
Yeah, go ahead.
The trial did not take place in Brentwood, where it happened. The defense made a motion for change of venue.
Right.
If it were in Brentwood, the jury would have just been made up of white people. It was moved to LA, where the jury was primarily black and brown. And that worked to Simpson's favor. And there were a lot of female African-American women on the jury who did not particularly have sympathy for Nicole Brown.
Right.
Which I thought was key. If they didn't have a change of venue and he was tried in Brentwood, regardless of Furman being a racist, I think he would have been found guilty. But, I mean, the prosecution presented so many witnesses, like, that's why the trial took like a year. And the other thing, which was unusual, which most people did not do, Simpson wanted a speedy trial, which is, you're right. He, at the time, I think when he was arraigned, he said, his attorney said, we request a speedy trial. And that put a lot of pressure on the prosecution because there was so much evidence and so much DNA evidence for them to get ready for trial in just a year. I mean, you look at trials now, even Karen Reed, her trial didn't go for 2 years. Trials take time. Lori Val Daybell, her trial, years. There's people that have murderers who have gone to trial after 4 years, 3 years. OJ literally they had a preliminary hearing to go over the evidence, which was smart by OJ's defense team, because the prosecution basically had to present their case at the preliminary hearing. So the defense knew what was coming when the trial started. They knew all the evidence they had, and then they could put together a game plan of how to attack it.
Amazing.
Reading.
Crazy case. The glove defense we know about. The chain of custody. This is an interesting one. The defense attack, the handling of DNA and other evidence, arguing was contaminated, planted. Crime scene was not sealed properly. Many officers walked through it, which is craziness.
Yep.
The glove defense we know about doesn't fit. You must acquit or whatever. The defense of the gloves don't fit because they shrank when soaked in blood.
Well, they were frozen. They were, because of how they were handled, they were frozen, unfrozen. The DNA testing on them all had an effect, and allegedly OJ had arthritis, pretty severe arthritis. He did not take his arthritic medication before that day, specifically so his joints would be swollen and the glove wouldn't fit. And it was F. Lee Bailey who goaded Christopher Darden into having him try on the glove. Like during a break in the trial, he was calling Garden out. He's saying, "You don't have the balls. You ain't gonna have him try it on. You're not gonna do it. You're not gonna do it. You don't have the balls. You don't have the guts. You're just the token black guy."
Really? Actually, Bailey was a dog.
And Marcia Clark specifically told Darden, said, "Do not have him try on the glove." And he did it anyway.
Darden was incompetent.
No, I don't think he was incompetent. I think he was pissed because he felt he was on the prosecution team, not because of his merits, not because he was a great prosecutor. He was there as window dressing because they wanted to show a black prosecutor. So he felt like he had a chip on his shoulder, like he's, I got to prove myself. So he went against Marcia Clark, the lead prosecutor. He was the second chair anyway, and that essentially sealed the deal for them. Even though they had a mountain of DNA evidence, even though they had a mountain of witnesses, it didn't matter. And the timeline was kind of tight if the prosecution, the way that they set it up, because Simpson left, I believe, around 11 o'clock, and they estimate that the murders took place between 10 and 10:30. And Cato Kalin testified he saw Simpson at 9:36, and then he wasn't seen again until 10:54 when the limo driver came to pick him up. Now, and then the limo driver also testified and said that OJ seemed fine. He, if you had committed 2 murders, you probably would be in shock or a little shaken up. He wasn't. He was fine in the car, and that's what he testified to. But they didn't. They struggled to get a hold of him at his house. They rang the intercom 3 times because he wasn't answering, and then finally they saw. I think Cato Kalin saw the white Bronco drive, and Simpson ran in the front door, and then he answered the intercom, and he left. So you can go on. There was also hair and fiber evidence. It was just unbelievable. Like you had too much evidence. The shoe print, especially, it was the Bruno Maglia shoes. They're Italian shoes, very expensive, very rare. And they were a size 12, the same size that Simpson wore. And according to this, only 299 pairs of that size were sold in the United States. And one of them was sold at the same store that Simpson buys his shoes from. So the shoe print, that had to have been a slam dunk too.
The Jesus boots.
Well, what happened was F. Lee Bailey was smart, and he argued that the murderer deliberately wore shoes that were the wrong size to frame OJ. And OJ denied ever owning those shoes. But it's funny because the Bloomingdale employee testified that he remembered Simpson buying them. but they didn't have a record of him purchasing them. But they do have him on film during one of his NBC broadcasts from a game of him wearing the shoes and wearing the gloves.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
I'm mind blown.
Yeah. So you can go on.
I can go on now.
I
That's mind blowing, dude.
I know. I know. I know a lot about this case.
You really are. You should have your own show on this. You should be on Netflix. They should have you on Netflix to discuss this. This is incredible to me. So really,
the other argument was that he was too old and like broken down to murder two people.
How old was he at the time? 50?
I think he was in his late 40s or early 50s. I have to check. But
51. I could easily pull something like that off.
They showed exercise video of him working out and saying he was completely capable of carrying out the murders. O.J. Simpson, minimum maintenance fitness for men. That was the video they showed, that he was anything but frail and not capable of committing these murders.
Well, that's pretty much it. You covered the other case things. The verdict, obviously, the case was obviously he was found not guilty in a criminal trial. The civil trial, he was found guilty.
He was guilty. The civil trial
$500,000 million damages, which he probably never paid.
He didn't. No.
Big transformative thing along racial lines. If they polled African Americans, and they overwhelmingly found that he was not guilty, and they polled white people, and they found him overwhelmingly guilty, which is really, really interesting because
well, if the trial stayed in Brentwood, he would have received probably an all-white jury.
It shows back, at least back then, that and probably still would be the same way. I think it shows that the African American community did not trust at all the system.
No,
right?
Nope.
Because they felt that this was a win for them, regardless. You ask people later, they probably feel like, yeah, he probably was guilty, but it was a stick to the system that, after years of obviously the system being against them, they felt that was a win where they got a win on the system. And the murder is a black-white murder case. So
correct.
It's a case where a black person is murdering a white person, where yes, for many, if you go now, this is obviously California, which is obviously more progressive, but if you went to the South, right, that person would be just, in the 50s, like it wouldn't even gone to trial. They would just hung them. You know what I mean? If that happened, so if that was happening, so they felt like this was I would say, if you go subtly into the thought process of society, this was like, for blacks, this was a hey, this was a win for us in the system. And
it was retribution for Rodney King.
And many other cases,
yes,
where people who maybe were innocent or did not commit some of the issues were found guilty or had something bad happen to them. And again, the LA police in particular had so many issues with their leadership in the police, especially in the 80s and 90s. If you listen to especially the way LA is, like Compton and Crenshaw, and if you remember the movies from the 80s and early 90s, the movie that Ice Cube made, what was it called? was a great movie.
Oh, Boys in the Hood.
All right, we're not that he didn't make. He was in. Yeah, it was John Singleton that did it. Boys in the Hood, and then there was another one. I can't think of the name of it off the top of my head, but it kind of showed like the realities and the tensions between police and crime and the tensions along racial lines in Los Angeles.
Well, the LA riots took place right after the Rodney King verdict in 1992. So this was in 94, just shortly after that.
Right.
So that was huge.
It's very interesting because if you look at today, California is overwhelmingly Hispanic. So
correct.
It's not really a thing anymore per se. You know what I'm saying? I mean, obviously there's dangerous neighborhoods and different things like that and different areas along racial lines, but it's has such a large Hispanic population that some of the things that were an issue back then along those lines are not as much of an issue. But California has been like LA was a hotbed for that stuff at the time. It's so I was a kid. I wouldn't say I was a kid, but I was in my early 20s. And 94, I was 20. Okay. So like now knowing more and more about history, like the whole thing was like a perfect storm that ended up, 2 people were killed and OJ, in my opinion, got off with murder.
Well, we might have. We don't know.
I think I want to know what your conspiracy theories are because I want to hear that part of it.
Well, Barry Scheck. This was the first trial that really used DNA evidence. Before this, DNA wasn't as much a thing. It wasn't developed. This was a trial where it was used universally. And Barry Scheck just did an outstanding job. He had an 8-day cross-examination of Dennis Fung, who was the prosecution DNA guy. And he
crushed him.
Tore him apart. He accused him because Fung had not had experience with DNA. So he accused him of cross-contamination. He said the DNA was not packaged properly. The labs mishandled it. And he testified in the past that labs had mishandled DNA evidence and there was contamination. And then the biggest thing that they went after was basically it's called EDTA. And they said that basically the evidence collected, the blood evidence, had a higher level of EDTA in Simpson's blood than normal, which means that it could have been planted because EDTA is a preservative that is found in collection tubes that police use. So that they attacked the blood evidence, saying that the level of EDTA was higher than usual in blood that supports the defense's claim that the blood came from planted evidence from other blood samples. Because Furman collected it. Furman collected it. So they're saying that he took blood from vials and planted them all over the place to try to frame them. And the other big thing was they took the jury to Simpson's house.
What would be the reason to frame OJ, though?
We have no idea. They didn't have a motive for that, but they don't need a motive. The defense just needs to convince reasonable doubt.
No, I know. I'm saying, what was the motive in this case to convict OJ, to nail OJ?
I think because they did not have any other suspects, So they went full speed ahead against OJ. And that was what Cochran argued, that they didn't look at any other suspects. They claim that Nicole Brown had, quote unquote, a Colombian necktie because she was almost decapitated. And the reason for this was one of her friends, I believe her name was Faye Resnick, had a history of drug abuse. And the cartel came because she had an outstanding balance. And that's why Simpson got murdered, because she was, she was friends with her or whatever. So that was great. And then Johnny Cochran really stole the show. Johnny Cochran made everything go.
Johnny Cochran was brilliant.
Yes, 100%. Alan Dershowitz teaches at Harvard,
Right?
And there's a class you can take about this case.
Oh, really?
Yeah, for law, because he teaches law, and he explains how they were able to get a defendant with a mountain of evidence off. Because it's unbelievable how it happened. And they basically claimed reasonable doubt was that the DNA evidence was contaminated, compromised, and corrupted. And they proved it because Dennis Fung had no experience with DNA. He never testified at trials. The labs were attacked for cross-contamination. And then you have Mark Furman, the lead detective, who found the majority of the evidence, basically labeled a racist. He was on the stand and he denied, when he was on direct with the prosecution, denied ever dropping N-bombs or anything like that. So they set it up perfectly, because they called the woman from 1986. She was allegedly writing a book or making a screenplay about police, and Furman was on the recording dropping M-bombs. He pleaded the fifth, which made him look guilty. And he had an attorney present when the defense called him on redirect. Had he told, during the documentary, he said that he played up the police angle when he was doing this interview with the lady who was going to make a movie or write a book. And that's why he was dropping N-bombs and saying that, he roughed up suspects and all that stuff. He said it never really happened. He was trying to make it look better so he would get a movie made or a book made about it. So that was just crazy. Had he just come clean with that instead of taking the fifth, I think they could have rehabilitated him. But most people think that, after he was caught lying, the prosecution could not have rehabilitated his testimony. And I don't think they even tried to. Once the defense called him and he took the fifth, the prosecution didn't ask him any questions. So, and the other thing was the deliberations, I believe, were not very long for a trial that lasted nearly a year. I was trying to see.
I think the longer
how long they were out for.
I can't remember what it was. The longer they deliberate,
some people believe it either way. If it's short, some people believe it's good and that it's going to be a not guilty. If it's long, then it's guilty. Other people believe if it's longer, it's better for the defense. but I'm trying to see what it doesn't say how long they deliberated for, but I don't believe they deliberated that long. And it was funny because 100 million people worldwide listened to the verdict announcement. Long distance telephone call volume declined 58%. Trading volume on the New York Stock Exchange decreased by 41%. And it was estimated so much work stopped during the verdict that $480 million was lost in production across the world.
That's amazing.
Because people were losing, they stopped everything to watch the verdict, just like everyone stopped.
People went nuts. They were,
yeah, and this
both sides, like whoever, if you were for OJ, they went nuts. If you were against OJ, people went nuts.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And it was funny because after the verdict was read, juror number 9, 44-year-old Lionel Cryer, a black man, gave Simpson the Black Power raised fist salute. And he was a member of the Black Panther Party. And the prosecutors were dumb to leave him on the panel. Like, he wasn't dismissed. They didn't challenge him or anything. They didn't do enough background info or ask enough questions. So that's
wait a minute. So that's great. So they had a Black Panther Party. And I think that's what Ron Goldman's dad had basically said that
he was furious every day they interviewed him.
Prosecution, yeah.
After every day of trial, he would just be more and more disgusted. After Furman testified, he was disgusted because he felt that the trial went away from the murders of 2 people, his son and Nicole Brown, to Mark Furman being a racist. And they
exactly. And the worst thing about all of it from Ron Goldman's family side of it is, I would be beside myself. His child was caught in a
wrong place, wrong time
between 2 people, and no one wants to listen.
No. I mean, it was
which would be a life sentence. You know what I mean? Lifetime sentence. And no one was, and he was caught in that thing with Nicole Brown. So, but I still want to hear, who do you think did it? If it wasn't him,
who do I think did it? There was a show that surmised that his son could have done it. There was a show done that said it was just wrong place, wrong time, and it was an unknown murder or a serial killer or someone who's still out there. I do believe that, based on, if I was a juror on the trial, I probably would have acquitted him because there's reasonable doubt. That's the main thing for the prosecution and the defense. And a criminal trial, you have to find the defendant guilty beyond all reasonable doubt.
Right.
And I have reason. Mark Furman gives me reasonable doubt. So I would have found him not guilty. Did he do it? I would say there's probably a 90% chance he did it. But I still leave, the 10% chance that he didn't do it, that he could have been framed, is possible. It's just possible. It's possible because they're really even for OJ, they struggled with the prosecution struggled with a motive. Like, what motive did he have to kill her? They had been divorced. They had even reconciled a few times, and they were co-parenting pretty well. Now, in the early 80s, the police were called to their house all the time. I mean, she got beat up all the time.
Right.
I mean, he committed a ton of domestic violence. And that was the other thing that they pointed out. Yeah, he was a jerk, a bad man, a bad husband. That doesn't make you a murderer. The other thing that stood out to me was after the trial, Robert Shapiro did an interview with Barbara Walters, and he was very disappointed that Johnny basically, like, Shapiro initially was the lead the lead lawyer for the defense. Cochran replaced him. He did not like that Cochran played the quote unquote race card.
Yes.
And he said that on the Barbara Walters interview. So there, I mean, and Carl Douglas even said that when you have a dream team of defense lawyers, all of them have egos. All of them have prosecuted major cases. All of them want to do things a certain way. So to get them to agree on one thing together was very, very difficult. Like, everyone calls them the dream team, but they didn't get along. They weren't all best buddies after. They had to come together and do all they could to defend OJ. And then if you watch the Netflix documentary, they have home video of OJ being released and going home and having a party at his house, which was crazy. Alternative theories have suggested that the murders were related to Los Angeles drug trade and the murders of a couple other people, Michael Nigg and Brett Cantor. In 2000, the BBC did a TV documentary, OJ, The Untold Story. It goes over the contamination of the DNA evidence and the blood claims. And they were the ones who asserted Simpson's elder son, Jason, is a possible subject due to, among many, many reasons. And I didn't even know this. I didn't know this. Simpson hired attorneys for his children first before himself. And pictures of Jason wearing the wool cap, and he alleged had an arrangement to meet with Nicole that evening. And then
it's a money thing?
Well, there was a writer, William Deere, who published his findings in a book, OJ is Innocent and I Can Prove It.
That's the alternative theory, that almost like he was covering for his son so his son doesn't go down?
Basically. And then in 2012, there was a documentary.
He had a better chance of getting off than his son would have ever had a chance of getting off.
Correct. 2012, there was a documentary made, My Brother, the Serial Killer. It examined the crimes of convicted murderer Glenn Edward Rogers and included claims that Rogers was the one who killed Simpson and Goldman in California.
So the thing that I have the hardest time with, if I were to make the assumption that OJ was actually innocent and someone else did it, the thing that I would have a hard time with, beyond the whole thing with Mark Furman and all that kind of stuff, would be why kill Ron Goldman?
Because he was there. Like OJ or whoever was the murderer was in the process of murdering Nicole.
And he came upon them?
Goldman was walking to return the glasses. And they're in the driveway or whatever where this happened, and he's there. He sees it. He tries to intervene to save her, and he got stabbed. He got a knife, or he was blindsided and wasn't prepared. But Goldman and Nicole Brown had no relationship, didn't know each other, no ties, anything. I think the only tie they had was just from Nicole Brown going to that restaurant, and he knew her from there, and that's why he offered to return the glasses. Because
what is this that Boss King has up here? And thank you, Boss King, for your.
Oh, I didn't see what.
Why did it bring up the beige hat by the driver's seat on the Bronco? And then
the
marker 27.
They did the wool hat. I believe he's talking about the wool hat. I thought they did bring it up, and they had hairs tested from it, and it came back to OJ. But like I said, they lost all their credibility with. I mean, they had 108 DNA exhibits of evidence. 108. And all of it was discredited by Barry Scheck because of the EDTA, cross-contamination. This is the first time it was really used in a major trial, and the crime scene was contaminated, by police who weren't signed in, walking all over. So it was not locked down. They definitely did not do a good job investigating this case and doing what needed to be done.
Crazy. Cutting
off the crime scene, making sure it was sealed, making sure the evidence was stored properly, the freezing, the unfreezing of the glove. It was sloppy. It was sloppy. And Dennis Fung and Mazzola did admit on the stand during evidence collection that they made several mistakes, which included not always changing gloves between handling evidence items. So they're wearing the same gloves and they're handling the blood evidence or what other evidence. You're supposed to take gloves off, put new gloves on. They wore the same gloves the entire time. The packaging and storing of the evidence items, they used plastic bags rather than paper bags. And storing evidence in a police van, which was not refrigerated, for up to 7 hours after collection, which the defense argued bacteria degraded the DNA, just made the samples more susceptible to cross-contamination in the LAPD crime lab. And after Dennis Fung testified, he went up to Barry Scheck and shook his hand and said, "Wow, you did a great job." Can you believe that?
That is
he was on the stand for 8 days, and then after Dennis Fung went up to him and shook his hand and said, "Wow, you're awesome. You win. You tore me apart." So it was just.
Did that flabbergast you as well?
Of course.
Well, you see that a lot with lawyers, though. I do think you see that a lot. Like,
They don't. The witnesses don't get up and shake their hands after they got their ass kicked and
Oh
cross
no,
examined.
not witnesses. You're right. No, between lawyers they do, but
Yeah,
not.
I think so. Yeah, I think there's a professional respect. Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's it. That's it. I mean, it definitely was a trial of the century. It definitely got more media coverage than ever. Polarizing, but you have to remember, OJ got off. His life was ruined.
Yes,
He ended up going to jail in 2009 anyway. He never paid the Goldman family. They basically were given, they auctioned off his items, including his Heisman Trophy, just to, to collect on a civil trial. You're on your own. Like, you don't get any help.
It's mind-boggling, really, if you think about it.
Yeah.
Well, his life was completely destroyed.
It was. I mean, he got off, but I mean, what really did he do after? He played golf by himself. He
Is that
lost.
right? Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, that's all he did. He played golf.
He lost all his friends.
He lost his friends, money, status. So, what would have really been the difference had he gone to jail or?
Well, he was on the outside. That is the difference.
He was on the outside, but I mean, he lived a life of solitude. Like, nobody wanted anything to do with him.
Well,
He was found not guilty, but didn't make a difference.
Right. Well, because in the eyes of the public, for the most part, he was guilty. And that made his life a lot harder after that. It is a. I come away with it with a couple of things. You have to be able to be in control of your anger, and if he did do it, that was obviously lost control. The thing I have the hardest time with it was premeditated, and I know OJ's background. I used to point to when he was young, before he got to USC and all that, he was, he wasn't always on the up and up as far as.
He went to a junior college before he went to USC.
Right.
And the other argument was he wasn't like a representative of the black community. Like, he wanted to be white. He played at all white country clubs. And then during the trial, when they toured his house, they changed all the pictures to show him with black people and like African flags and all this stuff, because the jury was black.
Dude, Cochran was a genius. Cochran and Barry Shea, the two geniuses I come out with. F. Lee Bailey is an ultimate manipulator. I mean, beautiful lawyer. People always to this day listen. He had great experience. No one had better experience with this. To this day, the one-armed man that got off, people still think that he did it. You know what I mean? So even though there's obviously the movies, The Fugitive, and all these different things where he's portrayed, obviously he's innocent because he was found innocent. But back then, I think most of the people thought that now they found the one-armed man and he confessed, but there's people that still think that he was guilty.
I'm sure there are.
We want to get to our next thing because you got to go today. So let's wrap up. Fantastic show. Your breakdown of O.J. Simpson's trial is awesome. You present both sides.
I know it. I told you. I know these things. I gave you what I know. I know. I know OJ
on A&E. A&E, the channel with him.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just something that I took a huge interest in. I was fascinated by it. I've watched every documentary, ESPN did an 8-part series on him. OJ Made in America. There's so much information out there about this trial and the murder that you can watch, and I watched everything. So, but had I just would say, had the witnesses that sold their stories been able to testify,
Sure.
I think that would have won for the prosecution.
No doubt.
I think that Marsha Clark still could have called them. She chose not to. And Marsha Clark never tried another case after this.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah, she's a legal expert for CMN or whoever. Christopher Darden ended up, he's been great. He has a private practice and is a criminal defense attorney, and he also is a professor. So yeah, we can move on.
Amazing.
For
Great job.
For Lieutenant Cully and Detective Schuman. This has been Bloodlines and Betrayal. Remember, when life gives you lemons, don't make lemonade. Take 2 oranges and throw them